An American tourist in Amsterdam asked me where the nearest Walmart was. I worked at a bike rental shop near Centraal Station. She had a list of groceries written down and seemed genuinely confused. When I said we don't have Walmart here, she asked what Dutch people do for groceries then. I told her we have supermarkets, just different ones. Most channels just laugh at these stories. I actually collect and verify them from locals in over 30 countries. If you prefer insight over outrage, you belong here. Subscribe. She stared at me for a solid 10 seconds before asking if they accept dollars. They do not. A guy at our Tokyo hostel complained that nobody spoke English. He'd been there 3 days and was upset that restaurant menus weren't in English and store clerks didn't understand him. He said Japan should really consider adding English signs since so many tourists visit. Another guest pointed out that he was literally in Japan. He said that wasn't the point. The point was customer service. He left a 1-star review citing language barriers as a safety hazard. My Airbnb guest in Barcelona asked why we celebrated Thanksgiving on the wrong day. I'm Spanish. We don't celebrate Thanksgiving. She insisted she saw decorations in a store window the previous November. Those were autumn decorations. She argued that autumn decorations are Thanksgiving decorations and accused me of being politically correct. She wanted to know what Spanish people eat on Thanksgiving. I said nothing because it's Thursday. She wrote in her review that the host was anti-American. A woman in Iceland asked our tour guide why we didn't cancel the Midnight Sun. It was late June and staying light until 2 a.m. She'd booked a Northern Lights tour and was angry the sun wasn't setting. The guide explained that Midnight Sun happens in summer and Northern Lights happen in winter. She said the brochure didn't mention that. The brochure definitely mentioned that. She demanded a refund because nature was false advertising. This is exactly why I document these encounters. Not to mock travelers, but to map cultural blind spots. It's what separates this channel from the reaction noise. If you get that difference, you're in the right place. An American couple at a cafe in Prague asked me to switch the TV to ESPN. I was just another customer sitting nearby. They thought I worked there because I was wearing black. When I said I didn't work there, they asked if I could ask the staff in Czech for them. I'm Australian. I don't speak Czech. They said never mind then, but made it clear they were disappointed in my lack of helpfulness. They never asked the actual staff. A tourist in Copenhagen asked why our money was so big. I worked at a currency exchange booth. She was holding 500 kroner notes and seemed bothered by the size difference compared to US dollars. I explained that different countries have different currency designs. She asked if I could give her smaller-sized ones instead. I gave her smaller denominations. She said no, same amount of money but physically smaller bills. That's not how currency works. Someone at a Dublin pub asked the bartender why Guinness tasted different than it does in America. The bartender explained it's fresher here and the pour matters. The guy insisted something was wrong with it and wanted the American version instead. He said it should taste like the bottles he gets at home. The bartender told him those are brewed in Canada. The guy said that was impossible because the label says Ireland. It says Ireland on the label. A guest at our Berlin hotel called the front desk at 3 a.m. because Germans were speaking German in the hallway. She said it was the middle of the night and people should be quiet. But also, why were they speaking a foreign language in a hotel? The front desk worker pointed out that German isn't foreign in Germany. She said it was foreign to her. She asked if we had an English-only floor. We did not. She checked out early and blamed jet lag for her confusion. An American woman in Thailand asked why the toilet paper was next to the toilet instead of on the wall. I was staying at the same hostel. She was convinced someone had vandalized the bathroom by removing the toilet paper holder. I told her many places in Thailand use bum guns instead, and paper is secondary. She asked what a bum gun was. I showed her the spray nozzle. She said that was barbaric, and America would never stand for that. She used an entire roll per visit out of protest. A tourist at a Stockholm restaurant asked if they had ranch dressing. They didn't. He asked what people put on salad then. The server listed several dressings they did have. He interrupted and asked why they didn't just have ranch since everyone likes ranch. The server said it's not common in Sweden. He said Sweden should really get on that because salad without ranch is just sad vegetables. He ordered a burger instead. No salad. Someone in New Zealand asked our kayak tour guide where all the American flags were. It was the 4th of July. She expected to see Independence Day decorations in the small coastal town we'd launched from. The guide explained that 4th of July is an American holiday, and New Zealand celebrates Waitangi Day instead. She said that was fine, but Americans were visiting, so some flags would be nice. She'd brought a small one to plant on the beach. The guide asked her not to. A man in Portugal asked why the ocean was so cold. It was March. I was working at a surf school in Peniche. He'd booked a lesson expecting Caribbean temperatures. When I explained Atlantic water is colder, he said the brochure showed people surfing, and they looked warm. They were wearing wetsuits. He asked why the ocean couldn't be heated. I told him it's the ocean. He suggested Portugal look into that for tourism purposes. An American couple in Rome asked their waiter why Olive Garden does Italian food better. The waiter asked them to repeat the question. They said the pasta here was too al dente and the portions were small. Olive Garden gives you unlimited breadsticks, and the pasta is softer. The waiter stood there for a moment, then he brought them their check. They hadn't finished their meal. He told them they were done. They left a review saying Romans are sensitive about chain restaurants. A tourist in Morocco asked me why the call to prayer was so early. I worked at a riad in Marrakech. She wanted to know if we could ask the mosques to start later, because 5 a.m. was unreasonable for guests. I explained that prayer times are based on the sun and are part of Islamic tradition. She said she understood culture, but this was a business and guests pay money. She suggested soundproofing or perhaps moving the mosques further away. The mosques have been there for centuries. Someone at a restaurant in Mexico City asked if the water was safe. The server said bottled water is recommended. The tourist asked why Mexico doesn't just fix their water. The server explained infrastructure and different water treatment systems. The tourist said that seemed like something they should prioritize since Americans visit. The server brought bottled water. The tourist asked if they could drink the ice. The server said no. The tourist asked what Mexicans do. We order drinks without ice. A guest at our Athens Airbnb asked where the ancient ruins were. I said there are ruins throughout the city, including the Acropolis. She said no, the real ancient ruins from the movies. I asked which movies? She meant Troy and 300. I explained those were filmed elsewhere and are also somewhat fictional. She argued that Greece should have the real version since it's their history. She wanted to see where the actual Spartans lived. Sparta is a different city. She accused me of gatekeeping. An American man in Vietnam asked why everyone was driving on the wrong side. I was his taxi driver in Hanoi. Vietnam drives on the right side, same as America. He insisted it felt wrong and people were going the wrong direction. I assured him we were following traffic laws. He said the flow was all backwards and confusing. I asked if he'd ever been to the UK. He said no. I told him this was normal and he was just experiencing new traffic patterns. He held the door handle the entire ride. A woman at a Paris cafe asked if they had coffee with more freedom. The barista didn't understand. She said American coffee, like Starbucks, but fresher. The barista said they had Café Americain. She tasted it and said it was too bitter. She wanted it sweeter and bigger. The barista offered sugar. She said no, like flavored. The barista had no flavored syrups. She said France really should modernize their coffee culture. She left and went to Starbucks. There was one 2 blocks away. A tourist in Budapest asked our museum guide why everything was in Hungarian. The guide said we're in Hungary. The tourist said that most of the tourists are English-speaking, so the primary signage should accommodate that. The guide pointed out the English translations below each Hungarian display. The tourist said the English should be on top because it's more universal. The guide moved on with the tour. The tourist left a comment card suggesting the museum prioritize accessibility for international guests. Someone at a Norwegian cabin rental asked me why the sun wouldn't set. It was late May in Tromsø. I explained the midnight sun phenomenon. He said that was interesting, but he needed darkness to sleep. I suggested blackout curtains. He said that didn't solve the problem that it was 11 p.m. and still bright. He wanted to know if Norway had considered daylight saving time. I told him that wouldn't help. He asked who he could speak to about adjusting the tilt of the Earth. A couple in Argentina asked their tour guide why everyone was speaking Spanish. The guide said Spanish is the official language of Argentina. They said they thought everyone in South America spoke Brazilian. The guide explained that Brazil speaks Portuguese, and the rest mostly speaks Spanish. They argued that Spanish is from Spain. The guide confirmed that's where it originated. They seemed betrayed by this information. One of them said they specifically came to South America to avoid European languages. An American woman at a grocery store in Germany asked me where the peanut butter was. I worked there part-time. I showed her our small peanut butter section. She stared at the 3 jars available and asked where the rest was. I said, "That's what we have." She asked how Germans survive without variety. I told her, "Peanut butter isn't that common here." She looked horrified. She bought all 3 jars and said she'd have to ration them. She was staying for 4 days. A tourist in Poland asked why the movie at the cinema had subtitles. It was an American film with Polish subtitles. He asked if they had the English version. The ticket seller said the movie is in English with Polish subtitles for Polish audiences. He said the subtitles were distracting. She suggested sitting further back. He asked why Poland doesn't just dub everything into English since most movies are American anyway. She explained that would make no sense. He said it made sense to him. He watched the movie and complained the entire time. A guest at a hostel in Prague complained that his GPS wasn't working right. I was working the night desk. He said it kept trying to route him down walking streets where cars can't go. I explained that much of Prague's old town is pedestrian only. He said his GPS should know that. It did know that. He wanted car routes. If these stories make you shake your head but also see the pattern, how travel reveals mindset, then subscribe now, because next week's breakdown goes even deeper into how cultures collide, and most people miss it. I told him he'd have to walk or use public transit in those areas. He said that was inefficient, and old European cities should update their infrastructure. He suggested knocking down some buildings for parking garages.